The phone rang at 2:47 a.m., cutting through the silence of my hotel office like a rusty blade. 23 years in law enforcement taught me that nothing good ever came from calls at this hour. I was right. Rafael Ortega. My voice came out gravelly from too much coffee and not enough sleep. Rafael, it's Chief Morales. You need to get down to Camila's restaurant, now. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Camila was my sister, the only family I had left who still talked to me. Her restaurant, Casa Esperanza, was her life's work, a small Cuban place that served the best ropa vieja in the city. What happened, Chief? Gang hit. 3 men, baseball bats, and crowbars. Camila and Hector are... His voice cracked. They're gone, Rafael. I'm sorry. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto my desk. My sister was gone. My brother-in-law, Hector, who made the best black beans this side of Havana, was gone. I stared at the wall of my cramped office, where a faded photo of Camila's wedding day hung next to my private investigator's license. I'd left the police force 5 years ago after a corruption scandal that wasn't my fault, but stuck to me anyway. Now I ran a small security firm out of a converted firehouse, doing background checks and installing alarm systems for local businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept me busy enough to forget that my marriage was falling apart. Speaking of my marriage, where was Marisol? I glanced at the hotel registry on my desk. The Palacio Real, that's what she called our 12-room boutique hotel, though boutique was generous. It was more like a tired old building with delusions of grandeur. According to the night clerk's notes, she'd left around 11 p.m., saying she had a business meeting. A business meeting at 11 p.m. Right. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Tomas, my right-hand man, and the only person who'd stuck with me through the police scandal, was already waiting by his truck. Heard the call on the scanner, he said. His weathered face was grim. I'm sorry, boss. Let's go see what's left of my family. The drive to Casa Esperanza took 12 minutes through empty streets, slick with October rain. The restaurant sat on the corner of Harbor Street and 3rd, a small brick building with hand-painted signs in Spanish and English. Now it was wrapped in yellow tape, like a birthday present from hell. Chief Morales met us at the door. He was 60 years old with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much of this city's ugliness. We'd worked together for 15 years before everything went sideways. It's bad, Rafael. Really bad. The interior of the restaurant looked like a tornado had hit it. Tables overturned, chairs smashed, the beautiful hand-painted murals Camila had commissioned destroyed. But the worst part was the chalk outlines on the floor near the kitchen door. What do we know? I asked, forcing myself into professional mode. 3 witnesses saw a black SUV pull up around 10:30 p.m. 3 men got out all wearing ski masks. They went in, did their work, and left. Whole thing took maybe 5 minutes. Robbery? Morales shook his head. Cash register wasn't touched. This was a message. What kind of message? The kind that says, someone wanted your sister to stop serving food to the wrong people. I knelt beside one of the chalk outlines. Camila had been 48 years old, a mother of 2 grown daughters who lived in California. She'd never hurt anyone in her life. Her biggest crime was giving free meals to homeless veterans on Thursdays. Any leads on the SUV? Working on it, but Rafael... Morales hesitated. There's something else. We found this. He handed me a clear evidence bag containing a gold cufflink. Expensive, with an intricate design I recognized immediately. It was the kind of thing city councilmen wore to fundraising dinners. Where was this? Near the back door. Probably fell off during the struggle. I studied the cufflink through the plastic. The design was a stylized eagle with spread wings, the logo of the Coastal Development Group, a company that had been trying to buy up property in this neighborhood for months. Camila had refused to sell, even when they offered her twice what the building was worth. I need to see my wife, I said. Rafael, go home. Get some sleep. We'll handle this. My wife wasn't home when you called. She said she had a business meeting at 11 p.m. Morales frowned. What kind of business meeting? That's what I intend to find out. The Palacio Real sat 3 blocks from the waterfront, a 3-story Victorian that had seen better decades. Marisol had inherited it from her grandmother and spent the last 10 years trying to restore it to its former glory. The problem was that former glory cost money we didn't have. I found her in the lobby, sitting behind the antique reception desk with a glass of wine and a stack of bills. She looked up when I entered, and I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Rafael, I heard about Camila on the police scanner. I'm so sorry. Marisol was 45, with dark hair and the kind of classical beauty that had caught my attention 20 years ago. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than most people made in a week, and her makeup was perfect despite the late hour. Where were you tonight? I asked. I told you I had a business meeting. With who? She hesitated. Potential investors, people who might help us save the hotel. I walked closer, studying her face. 23 years of interrogating suspects had taught me to read micro-expressions, and Marisol was lying through her perfect teeth. What kind of investors meet at 11 p.m.? The kind who have busy schedules during normal business hours. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo Morales had sent me of the cufflink. Ever seen this before? Her face went pale. No. Why would I? It was found at Camila's restaurant, after she was murdered. Marisol set down her wine glass with shaking hands. Rafael, you can't possibly think I had anything to do with... I don't know what to think anymore. I left her sitting there and went upstairs to our apartment on the 3rd floor. The living room was a mess. Magazines scattered on the coffee table, a half-eaten sandwich on a plate. Marisol's purse dumped on the couch with its contents spilled out. That's when I saw it, a business card for Coastal Development Group with a handwritten note on the back. Looking forward to our partnership. MR. MR could only be one person. Matteo Ruiz, city councilman, and the public face of every major development project in the city. He was also married, ambitious, and exactly the kind of man who wore gold cufflinks to business meetings. I pocketed the card and went through Marisol's purse more carefully. Credit card receipts from expensive restaurants I'd never been to. A hotel room key from the Seaside Grand, not our hotel. A receipt from Victoria's Secret dated 3 days ago. My wife was having an affair with the man whose company had been pressuring my sister to sell her restaurant. The same restaurant where my sister had been murdered just hours after Marisol's mysterious business meeting. The pieces were starting to fit together, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. I spent the rest of the night going through hotel records, credit card statements, and phone bills. What I found painted a clear picture of betrayal that went back months. Marisol had been meeting with Matteo Ruiz regularly since July. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, shopping trips, all paid for with money from the hotel's operating account. Money we needed to pay suppliers, staff, and the mortgage that was already 3 months behind. But the financial infidelity was just the beginning. I found emails on Marisol's laptop that made me freeze. Matt, R says the Cuban woman is still refusing to sell. Maybe it's time for more direct persuasion. The neighborhood needs to understand that progress can't be stopped by sentimental attachment to old buildings. M. The timestamp was 9:47 p.m. the previous night, less than an hour before the attack on Casa Esperanza. I printed the email and added it to the growing pile of evidence on my desk. Then I called Tomas. It's 6 a.m., boss. What's so urgent it couldn't wait for coffee? My wife helped eliminate my sister. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, I'll be right over. Tomas arrived 20 minutes later with 2 cups of coffee and a box of donuts from the place down the street. He was 55 years old, built like a retired linebacker, and had been my partner during my last 5 years on the force. When I started the security company, he was the first person I called. "Show me what you've got," he said. I laid out the evidence, the cufflink, the business card, the email, the financial records showing Marisol's secret spending. Tomas studied everything with the methodical attention to detail that had made him a good detective. "This is circumstantial," he said finally. "Suggestive, but not proof. It's enough to know what happened. Knowing and proving are two different things. What do you want to do about it?" That was the question I'd been asking myself all morning. I could take everything to Chief Morales, but Matteo Ruiz had connections throughout city government. He'd been on the council for 8 years and had his eye on the mayor's office. A corruption investigation would take months, assuming it went anywhere at all. By then, Marisol and Matteo would have had time to cover their tracks, destroy evidence, and probably leave town with whatever money they could steal from the hotel accounts. No, this required a more direct approach. "I want to make them pay," I said. "Both of them." "Legally?" "Preferably." Tomas grinned. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "I like the sound of that. Where do we start?" "With surveillance. I want to know everything they do, everyone they meet, every lie they tell, and I want it all documented." We spent the morning setting up a surveillance operation. Tomas would handle Matteo, using contacts from his private security days to track the councilman's movements. I would focus on Marisol, though that would be trickier since we lived in the same building. The first break came around noon when Marisol announced she was going shopping. I followed her from a distance, using techniques I'd learned during undercover operations. She drove to the Seaside Grand, the same hotel where she'd been meeting Matteo. I parked across the street and called the hotel's main number. "Seaside Grand, how may I help you?" "I'm trying to reach Matteo Ruiz. He's staying in one of your suites." "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have anyone registered under that name." "Maybe he's using a different name. He's a city councilman, about 50 years old, drives a silver BMW. "Oh, you must mean Mr. Rodriguez. He's in the penthouse suite. Would you like me to connect you?" "No thanks, I'll call back later." So Matteo was using a fake name. That suggested he was being careful about the affair, which meant he knew it could damage his political career. That gave me leverage. I waited in my car for 2 hours before Marisol emerged from the hotel. She looked satisfied, like a cat who'd just finished a bowl of cream. Her hair was mussed and her lipstick was gone. Instead of going home, she drove to a small office building downtown. The directory in the lobby listed dozens of businesses, but one caught my attention: Coastal Development Group, Suite 412. I took the elevator to the 4th floor and found Suite 412 at the end of a long hallway. Through the frosted glass door, I could see shadows moving around inside. I pressed my ear to the door and heard voices, Marisol's, and at least 2 others. "The restaurant problem has been solved," a man's voice said. It wasn't Matteo. This voice was rougher, with a slight accent I couldn't place. "Good," Marisol replied. "What about the other holdouts on Harbor Street?" "We're working on them. A few more incidents like last night and they'll be eager to sell." My hands clenched into fists. They were talking about terrorizing the entire neighborhood, using violence to force people from their homes and businesses, and my wife was part of it. I took out my phone and started recording, pressing it against the door to pick up as much audio as possible. "The councilman wants this wrapped up by Christmas," the rough voice continued. "The mayor's planning to announce the waterfront development project in January, and we need all the properties secured by then." "That's only 2 months away," Marisol said. "Then we'd better work fast. How much can you contribute to the acquisition fund?" "I can liquidate the hotel's assets. Maybe 200,000. My jaw dropped. 200,000 was everything. The building, the furniture, the business accounts, even our personal savings. She was planning to steal our entire life to fund this development scheme. "That's a good start. With your contribution and the councilman's connections, we should be able to clear the whole block by New Year's." I'd heard enough. I backed away from the door and took the stairs down to the lobby, my mind racing with possibilities. This wasn't just about an affair or even about my sister's murder. This was about a conspiracy to destroy an entire neighborhood for profit, and my wife was one of the conspirators. I spent the next week building a comprehensive case against Marisol and Matteo. Every morning I followed one of them. Every evening I compiled evidence. Every night I lay in bed next to my wife, pretending to sleep while she whispered lies about her day. The surveillance revealed a pattern. Matteo would meet with gang members at a warehouse near the marina, paying them cash to intimidate business owners on Harbor Street. Marisol would visit the bank, gradually transferring money from our business accounts to a shell company controlled by Coastal Development Group. They thought they were being careful, but they'd made two critical mistakes. First, they underestimated my investigative skills. Second, they assumed I'd be too grief-stricken over Camila's passing to pay attention to anything else. They were wrong on both counts. By Friday, I had enough evidence to destroy them both. Bank records showing the illegal transfers, photos of Matteo meeting with known criminals, audio recordings of their conversations about terrorizing the neighborhood, even video footage of them together at the Seaside Grand, thanks to a security camera across the street. But evidence wasn't enough. I wanted them to suffer the way they'd made other people suffer. The opportunity came on Saturday morning when Marisol announced she was going to a spa day with her friend Gina. I knew it was another lie. Gina had been out of town all week, visiting her sister in Boston. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. "I'll probably spend the day working on the hotel's books." "Don't work too hard," she replied, already heading for the door. As soon as she left, I called Tomas. "It's showtime." We met at the office to go over the plan one final time. Phase 1 was simple. Confront Matteo at his condo and get him to confess on tape. Phase 2 would be trickier, exposing both of them publicly in a way that would destroy their reputations and their scheme. "You sure about this?" Tomas asked. "Once we start, there's no going back. My sister is gone because of them. There was no going back the moment they decided to use violence to get what they wanted." Matteo lived in a luxury high-rise overlooking the harbor. The building had a doorman, security cameras, and the kind of residents who minded their own business. Perfect for a corrupt politician who needed privacy for his illegal activities. I walked into the lobby like I belonged there, wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase that made me look like a businessman. The doorman barely glanced up from his newspaper. "I'm here to see Councilman Ruiz," I said. "He's expecting me." "Name?" "Rafael Ortega, Coastal Development Group." The doorman called upstairs. "Mr. Rodriguez, there's a Rafael Ortega here to see you." "Yes, sir, I'll send him up." The elevator ride to the 20th floor gave me time to check my recording equipment one last time. I had a digital recorder in my breast pocket and another one in my briefcase, both voice-activated and capable of recording for hours. Matteo opened the door, wearing a silk bathrobe and a confused expression. He was shorter than I'd expected, maybe 5'8", with thinning hair and the soft look of a man who'd spent too many years eating at expensive restaurants. "I'm sorry. Do we have a meeting scheduled?" he asked. "We do now. I'm Rafael Ortega." Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by fear. "Camila's brother." "That's right. The brother of the woman you had eliminated." He started to close the door, but I put my foot in the way. "I don't think you want to do that, Councilman. Not when I have so much evidence of your illegal activities." Matteo stepped back, and I followed him into the condo. It was decorated in chrome and glass, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a spectacular view of the harbor, the kind of place that cost more per month than most people made in a year. "I don't know what you think you know," he said, "but I know about the shell companies. I know about the gang payments. I know about your affair with my wife and how you used her to launder money through the hotel." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "I know everything, Matteo. The question is what we're going to do about it." His face had gone pale. "What do you want?" "I want you to confess." "That's not going to happen." I walked to the window and looked out at the harbor. "Nice view. 20 floors up. That's what, 200 feet? I wonder how long it would take to fall that distance." "Are you threatening me?" I turned back to him. "I'm explaining physics. See, the thing about gravity is that it's impartial. Doesn't matter if you're a city councilman or a homeless veteran, you fall at the same rate. Matteo's hands were shaking now. You're crazy. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a man who loved his sister and doesn't appreciate corrupt politicians having her murdered. I opened the sliding door to the balcony. The wind whipped through the condo, scattering papers and making the curtains dance. Let's go outside, Matteo. The fresh air might help you think more clearly. I'm not going anywhere. Sure you are. I grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the balcony. He was soft and weak, no match for someone who'd spent 23 years in law enforcement. The balcony was small, maybe 6 feet by 4 feet, with a glass railing that came up to waist height. I pushed Matteo against the railing and held him there. Now, I said, let's talk about what really happened to my sister. Matteo was crying now, tears streaming down his face as the wind whipped around us 20 floors above the street. His silk bathrobe flapped like a flag, and I could smell the fierce sweat coming off him in waves. Please, he whispered, I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But people did get hurt, didn't they? My sister, my brother-in-law, how many others, Matteo? It wasn't supposed to happen like that. The plan was just to scare them, make them want to sell. I loosened my grip slightly, letting him step back from the railing. Tell me about the plan. Coastal Development has been trying to buy up the Harbor Street properties for 2 years. Most of the owners were willing to sell, but a few holdouts were blocking the entire project. Including Camila. She was the worst one. Every time we made an offer, she'd rally the other business owners to resist. She was turning it into some kind of neighborhood preservation crusade. The wind gusted, and Matteo grabbed the railing to steady himself. I let him, but stayed close enough to grab him if he tried to run. So, you decided to use violence. Not me. That was Tony Vega's idea. He's the one who handles the difficult acquisitions. Tony Vega? He runs security for Coastal Development. Ex-military, connections to some rough people. When legal pressure doesn't work, Tony finds other ways to motivate sellers. I filed the name away for later. And my wife? How does she fit into this? Matteo looked away. Marisol approached us 6 months ago. The hotel was in financial trouble and she needed money fast. She offered to help with the Harbor Street project in exchange for a partnership in the development. What kind of help? Information mostly. She knew everyone in the neighborhood, understood their weaknesses. She also provided a way to launder payments to Tony's people through the hotel's accounts. My wife hadn't just been stealing our money. She'd been using our business to fund a criminal conspiracy. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. The night Camila was eliminated, I said. Tell me exactly what happened. There was supposed to be a neighborhood association meeting at the restaurant. Marisol told us about it, said it would be the perfect time to send a message. What kind of message? Vandalism. Break some windows, trash the dining room, spray paint some threats on the walls. Tony said his people would make sure no one got hurt. But that's not what happened. Matteo's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Camila and Hector stayed late to prepare food for the meeting. They were still there when Tony's people arrived. There was a confrontation and... He trailed off. And they were beaten with baseball bats. Tony said it was self-defense, said they fought back and his people had no choice. I grabbed Matteo by the throat and pushed him back against the railing. My sister was 48 years old and weighed 110 pounds. My brother-in-law had arthritis in both hands. What exactly were they going to do against 3 men with weapons? I don't know. I wasn't there. But you paid for it. You and my wife planned it, funded it, and then covered it up. I let go of his throat and stepped back. Matteo collapsed onto one of the balcony chairs, sobbing uncontrollably. I never wanted anyone to die, he said. You have to believe me. What I believe is that you're a coward who hides behind other people's violence, but that's going to change. I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording app that had been running throughout our conversation. Congratulations, Councilman. You just confessed to conspiracy, racketeering, and accessory to murder. His face went white. You can't use that. It's illegal to record someone without their consent. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to a recording, and I consent. I smiled. Funny how the law works, isn't it? What do you want? I want you to call Tony Vega and tell him the deal is off. I want you to return every penny you stole from the neighborhood businesses, and I want you to resign from the city council. I can't do that. Your career is over either way. The only question is whether you go out quietly or in handcuffs. I played back a portion of the recording, letting him hear his own voice confessing to the conspiracy. This goes to the FBI, the state attorney general, and every news outlet in the city unless you do exactly what I tell you. Matteo stared at the phone like it was a poisonous snake. And if I cooperate? Then maybe I don't mention your name when I testify about Tony Vega and Coastal Development Group. Maybe you get to disappear quietly instead of spending the next 20 years in federal prison. What about Marisol? What about her? She's as guilty as I am. More, maybe. This whole thing was her idea. I felt a cold satisfaction at hearing him try to throw my wife under the bus. It confirmed everything I'd suspected about his character. Let me worry about Marisol, I said. You just focus on staying out of prison. I left him on the balcony and went back inside to collect my briefcase. Before leaving, I turned back one more time. Oh, and Matteo? If anything happens to me or anyone else in my family, that recording automatically gets sent to the authorities. I've set up what you might call a late man switch. He nodded numbly, still slumped in the chair like a broken doll. Glad we understand each other. I drove straight from Matteo's condo to the office, where Tomas was waiting with coffee and a satisfied grin. How'd it go? He asked. Better than expected. Matteo sang like a canary in a coal mine. I played him the recording, watching his expression grow darker with each revelation. Jesus, Rafael, your wife really was in on the whole thing. From the beginning, according to Matteo, it was her idea to use violence when the legal pressure didn't work. What's the next move? We take down the whole operation, but first, I need to have a conversation with my dear wife. I found Marisol in the hotel lobby, going through reservation books with a concerned expression. She looked up when I entered, and I saw guilt flash across her face before she composed herself. Rafael, how was your day? Educational. I learned some interesting things about real estate development. She tensed. Oh? Like what? Like how certain developers use violence and intimidation to acquire properties, like how they launder money through legitimate businesses, like how they recruit local partners to help with their criminal activities. Marisol set down her pen carefully. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Matteo's confession. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally resignation. You bastard, she said quietly. You recorded him without his knowledge. Actually, I recorded him with my knowledge, which is all the law requires. But I'm more interested in discussing your role in my sister's murder. I didn't murder anyone. No, you just provided the intelligence and funding that made it possible. Tell me, Marisol, when you told them about the neighborhood association meeting, did you know Camila and Hector would be there early? She didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. You knew, I said. You knew they'd be there alone, and you told Tony Vega anyway. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. That's what Matteo said. Funny how everyone involved keeps saying that, but somehow my sister is still gone. Marisol stood up and walked to the window overlooking the street. You don't understand the pressure I was under. The hotel was failing. We were months behind on the mortgage, and you were too proud to admit we needed help. So you decided to help yourself to money from criminal activities. I decided to save our business the only way I could, by betraying your husband and getting his sister eliminated. She whirled around, eyes blazing. Don't you dare put this all on me. You're the one who walked away from the police force, who started a security company that barely breaks even, who couldn't provide for his family. I left the force because I wouldn't take bribes or look the other way when my fellow officers committed crimes. Apparently you don't have the same moral constraints. Moral constraints don't pay the bills, Rafael. Neither does conspiracy and murder. I walked closer, studying her face. 20 years of marriage, and I was finally seeing who she really was underneath the beauty and charm. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to transfer every penny you stole back to the hotel's operating accounts. You're going to provide the FBI with a complete list of everyone involved in Coastal Development's criminal activities, and you're going to testify against Tony Vega and his associates. And if I refuse? I played another section of Matteo's recording, the part where he implicated her as the mastermind behind the violence. Then you go to prison for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, money laundering, and about a dozen other federal crimes. Your choice. Marisol sank into a chair, the fight going out of her. What happens to us? There is no us. There hasn't been for months, maybe years. I just didn't want to admit it. Rafael, please, we can work through this. We can start over. You helped eliminate my sister, Marisol. The only reason I'm not turning you over to the police right now is because I need your testimony to take down the rest of the organization. She started crying then, but they were tears of self-pity rather than genuine remorse. I felt nothing watching her break down. No sympathy, no regret, no lingering love. Just cold satisfaction at seeing justice finally being served. You have 24 hours to make your decision, I said. After that, the recording goes to the authorities with or without your cooperation. I left her sobbing in the lobby and went upstairs to pack my things. I was done living a lie, done pretending my marriage was salvageable, done being the fool who didn't see what was happening in his own home. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, my phone rang. It was Chief Morales. Rafael, we've got a problem. Tony Vega and 3 of his associates were found lifeless in a warehouse near the marina. Professional hit, execution style. When? About 2 hours ago. Security cameras show a silver BMW leaving the scene around the time of the murders. Matteo's car. The coward had decided to eliminate the witnesses rather than face the consequences of his actions. Chief, I need to see you right away. I have information about Tony Vega and the Harbor Street murders. What kind of information? The kind that's going to blow this whole case wide open. The FBI task force set up their command center in the federal building downtown, a gray concrete monument to bureaucratic efficiency. Agent Sarah Martinez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, listened to Matteo's recorded confession with the intensity of a predator studying prey. This is good, she said when the recording ended. Really good. But we're going to need corroborating evidence to make the charges stick. I've got bank records, email communications, surveillance photos, and witness statements, I said, sliding a thick folder across the conference table. Everything you need to prove the conspiracy. What about the recent murders at the warehouse? Matteo Ruiz. He's trying to eliminate witnesses, but he's not as smart as he thinks he is. Agent Martinez smiled grimly. We picked him up an hour ago trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. Funny thing about fleeing the country. It makes you look really guilty. What about my wife? She's agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her testimony, combined with your evidence, should be enough to dismantle the entire coastal development operation. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that justice was finally being served, sadness that it had taken my sister's passing to expose the corruption that had been festering in our city for years. There's something else, Agent Martinez continued. We've been investigating coastal development for months as part of a larger racketeering case. Your evidence fills in gaps we didn't even know existed. How long before arrests are made? The warrants are being processed now. By tomorrow morning, everyone involved in this conspiracy will be in federal custody. I left the federal building feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The weight of grief and anger was still there, but it was balanced now by the knowledge that Camila's eliminators would face justice. My phone buzzed with a text from Tomas. "Meet me at the office. We need to talk." I found him waiting with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. He poured drinks without speaking, then raised his glass in a toast. "To Camila," he said. "To Camila." We drank in silence for a moment. Then Tomas set down his glass and looked at me seriously. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild. The security company, the hotel, maybe even this neighborhood. Coastal development is finished, which means the gentrification pressure is off." "And Marisol?" "Marisol made her choices. She'll have to live with the consequences." "You okay with that?" I thought about it for a moment. Was I okay with my wife going to prison? Was I okay with my marriage being over? Was I okay with starting over at 52 years old? "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay with it." The next morning brought news that Matteo Ruiz had been charged with conspiracy, racketeering, money laundering, and 4 counts of murder in the 1st degree. Marisol was charged as a co-conspirator but would likely serve less than 5 years in exchange for her testimony. The story made front-page news in every paper in the state. "City Councilman's Criminal Empire Exposed," read the headline in the morning edition. Below, it was a photo of Matteo being led away in handcuffs, his political career and criminal enterprise both ending in spectacular fashion. I was reading the article when my phone rang. It was Luz, Camila's daughter, calling from California. "Uncle Rafael, I just saw the news. Is it true? Did they really catch Mom's eliminators?" "They caught everyone involved," I said. "Your mother and father are going to get justice." "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "Thank you for not giving up." I could never give up on family. After hanging up, I walked through the hotel one last time. The federal government had frozen all of Coastal Development's assets, which meant the Harbor Street properties would likely be sold to legitimate developers who respected the neighborhood's character. The hotel itself would survive. With the stolen money returned and insurance settlements from the various crimes, we actually had enough capital to complete the renovations Marisol had always dreamed of. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her criminal activities had inadvertently saved the business she'd been trying to preserve. But I wouldn't be running it. That chapter of my life was over. I found Tomas in the lobby, reading the newspaper and grinning. "Listen to this," he said. "Federal agents describe the Coastal Development conspiracy as one of the most sophisticated criminal enterprises they've encountered, involving money laundering, extortion, and murder for hire." Makes us sound like we took down the mob. Maybe we did, just a white-collar version. So what's next, boss? I looked around the lobby one more time, at the antique furniture Marisol had lovingly restored, at the faded photographs of the hotel's glory days, at the reservation book that would never again record her lies. Next, we get back to work. This city still needs honest security professionals, and there are probably other corrupt conspiracies that need exposing. Sounds good to me. 3 months later, I stood in the same federal courtroom where Matteo Ruiz was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Marisol received 8 years, which seemed inadequate but was better than nothing. As the bailiff led her away in shackles, she looked back at me one last time. I saw regret in her eyes, but I wasn't sure if she regretted her crimes or just getting caught. It didn't matter anymore. Outside the courthouse, Agent Martinez shook my hand. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Ortega. Without your investigation, these people would still be destroying lives and corrupting our city. Just doing what needed to be done. Well, if you ever want to work for the federal government, give me a call. We could use more people with your skills and integrity." I smiled. "Thanks, but I think I'll stick with private security. Less bureaucracy, more direct action." That evening, I had dinner at the new restaurant that had opened in Camila's old space. The owners had kept the name Casa Esperanza, and maintained the tradition of serving free meals to veterans on Thursdays. As I ate Hector's recipe for black beans, which the new chef had learned from Camila's handwritten notes, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. My sister was gone, but her legacy lived on. The neighborhood she'd fought to protect was safe from predatory developers. The criminals who'd destroyed so many lives were behind bars where they belonged. And I was free. Free from a marriage built on lies, free from the burden of willful blindness, free to build something better from the ashes of betrayal. Justice had been served in the most complete and satisfying way possible.